Well, how there? Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Show. As you know, this is the place where we uncover the people, the ideas, and the practical methods helping you build a healthier, happier, and more meaningful life. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And if you've maybe tried or you're tired of trying the latest wellness trends, or maybe you're starting again every Monday, or you're just feeling disconnected from your own body, I think today's conversation is the one for you. And as you know, this is the number one place to find the real stories and practical insights from the people who actually help us move from those quick fixes to lasting change. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this, because this episode is designed to give you ideas that you can use in your life straight away. Now, today I'm excited because I'm joined in the studio by Susanne Ridolfi. Now, Susanne, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Prosper.
Absolutely. For those that are tuning in, Susanne is a health coach, speaker, author, and women's wellness guide. She's also a former gymnast, educator, and according to her husband, a Viking warrior princess. And Susanne has spent more than 35 years helping people reconnect with their body, energy, and that inner wisdom that we seem to be losing as we age. And from Sweden to London, all across Europe, and now in the Gold Coast in Australia, she's helped build schools, trained practitioners, written books, created communities in more than 35 countries, and has helped women to stop outsourcing their well-being to the next trend. So I know you're going to want to share this episode with someone who's exhausted from trying everything, yet they still feel they have lost that connection to themselves. But make sure you're subscribed, because you don't want to miss any of the value that will be coming to the show. Now, Susanne, welcome to the show. I mean, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about, but you've been called so many names. I think your personal trainer has called you the body, your husband calls you the Viking warrior princess. Which one of these titles is best suited for your business card right now?
Well, the latest book I wrote is called My Body and Me. So I think both of them relates. The Viking warrior princess, the way I work is very much about resilience and how do we build up resilience in our body, which has to do with energy within our body. But it all comes down to, in some cultures it calls the body the temple, our temple. So in my world, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience here on this wonderful planet Earth. And we've been gifted this wonderful body. So in my world, it's my responsibility to look after it to its best, because I can't just go to the car shop as we do when the car runs out, and can't go to the body shop and get a new body. So it's going to be with me forever. So they're both relevant, I think. They both work with the work that I do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for starting us off with that. And speaking of starting, you had a very active past. Tell us a little bit about the journey and how it all started. You started off in gymnastics.
My parents put me in acrobatics as a 5-year-old little girl, probably to help me run off some of the extra energy I had, to be a bit more calm in their environment. And from there, I started gymnastics at the age of 7. So I spent many, many hours in the gymnasium during my early years and during my teenage years. And then I decided to start to coach. I coached young girls in gymnastics, in team gymnastics. And that then led me to deciding to become a PE teacher. So this is back home in Sweden. So through the PE teaching, you don't only focus on your core core skills when it comes to movement, but you learn all the other different sports and that you can practice or that you need to teach the students in the school as well. So then life took me over to America. I spent a couple of years in Manhattan. I lived in Manhattan for 2 years. And I still was working as a gymnastic coach, but then I ended up working in fitness places. Here in Australia, we have Good Life, for example. So people go to the fitness places to stay fit. So I was there as a coach, coaching them. And this is during Jane Fonda time. Prosper, I don't know if you remember Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda with leg warmers and leotards and was full on in front of the classes. So that was me. So I taught about 15 to 20 classes per week, and then I decided to run a marathon on top of that. So here's the gymnast turning marathon runner. Not very common, but I did it just to prove to myself I could do it, I think. But I over-exercised. I think I was an exercise addict, and it doesn't matter what kind of addiction you have. When you do too much of it, it doesn't work out very well. So my body then decided to stop me in my tracks, and it gave me such bad back problems I couldn't walk. And the only thing I wanted to do was, of course, to move again. So that led me to, I received acupuncture for the first time in my life, which was extremely helpful. But the acupuncturist was trained over in Japan. And in Japan, they practice Shiatsu before they start to stick needles into people's bodies. So using finger pressure rather than needles. So she used that for me as well. So that opened up a new avenue for me to retrain myself, and I trained to become a Shiatsu practitioner. Which also, during that time I realized, okay, there's a bit more to feeling well or to being well than fitness. You can be fit and strong, doesn't mean that you are well all the way through. So that opens for me the avenue of looking at body, mind, and spirit as you move through life and as you stay well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that, because, it really paints a picture of what it was like growing up, and that you grew up already, in the whole fitness sort of journey. And was that the line that the parents were involved in, or like you said, they were just sending you there so that you could burn off the energy that you seemed to have?
My parents were active. I mean, if you believe that you make choices in life and you can choose your parents, I chose very well. They did bring us up on the countryside of Sweden, and we lived very close to nature the whole time. We had our own little patch in the back garden, our veggie patch, and we probably didn't like them very much when they asked us to go out and pick up the potatoes for dinner, but we loved them when they were on the table and we could eat them. So I grow up close to nature, which is also the foundation for, the way that I work now with bringing people back into living in, as I say, an alignment with the rhythm of Mother Nature. So I had a very nice upbringing. We moved a lot. They didn't go to gymnastics or anything like that, but, this is during the time when you walked or biked, or in the wintertime, I cross-country skied to school. So we were an active family in that way, but they never had done gymnastics before. None of them did that. That was just something I felt that I wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
It does a lot, because what then that does is, children, when they're growing up, they usually have or look towards the people around them for a frame of reference. And this would have been, the upbringing that you had that already put you in this sort of, line of work. Now, my next question was now going to be, wasn't there any expectation for you to maybe excel or do well in academia, just so that we have a nice little compact background of how you then turned into the alternative way of being?
Expectations from my parents, you mean?
Absolutely, yes.
No,
Okay.
it wasn't. There were, we are four, I have an older brother and two younger sisters, and we all went in different directions. And so in that way, I think they supported us very much to be not free spirits, but to move towards something that excited us. So I was different. In school, for example, gymnastics wasn't a popular sport, so I was the person who chose a different way. So in my school, there were ball sports. My brother chose to do biking, as in what do we call it? Pedal biking, and competed in that. My other sister went and worked with horses. So very different upbringing in that way. And we all went into different applications in our professional life as well, different businesses. They were very supportive in supporting us in what we wanted to get out of our lives, I think.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. Now, you obviously began as a physical education teacher, like you said, in the PE department. And one thing that you may not have mentioned, but you went on and represented Sweden as a teenage gymnast. And in that way of being, there is a lot of discipline and a lot of confidence that comes in you showing up in spaces like that. Now, before obviously you started doing, before you started doing all this wellness and all of this, what did movement teach you about confidence, discipline, and listening to yourself?
Well, something that I recommend actually every parent to do is to put their children in gymnastics for 1 or 2 years, because gymnastics, not to take them to the elite or to move forward with it, but it gives them such basic skills when it comes to body awareness, to balance and coordination, to strength and flexibility. So, if we don't move, we stagnate. That's the truth, right? Sitting here in front of the computer, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't move a lot throughout the day. They move, and that's why we in today's world have all the different kinds of gyms and the fitness places we can go and exercise. In the past, when I grew up, and my parents, the way we lived life gave us the movement that we need to have, whereas in today's world, it's very, very different. But the important thing we have to remember is that everyone is an individual. So the way that I live my life and the appropriate and needed exercises or movements that I would do for my body is very different to yours, for example. It's very different for somebody who is a gardener, who's out moving all day. So depending on who you are, what you do professionally and in your daily life, and also which state in life you're at, the best way to do it is to adapt to the individual. There is no movement that fits everyone, if you like. There's similarities, but we all need to adapt to who we are. And the work that I do is listen to your body. What is it that your body needs at this moment in time and at this stage in your life? If you want to live well into the future, I could, but if I did the same thing today as I did when I was 20 and 30, my body's going to tell me off. It's not going to work very well. So then there'll be a clash. What I've learned over the years is to have conversations with the body that I live in, and to go into agreement with how we move and what we do and how we feed ourselves.
Absolutely.
We have conversations with everyone. I have a conversation with you, and do you have a conversation with your body? And how do you listen to your body and the signs and the symptoms that your body gives out? Question mark. I don't think a lot of people do, unfortunately. As I say, I think they listen to the car much more and take the car to the service station as soon as something doesn't work, or it's a light showing up on the on the front there. They go, something is wrong. I need to go and fix it. When it comes to our body, we sort of said, I'll take a painkiller, and it goes away.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Everything is very individualistic, in as much as it comes to the bodies that we live in, because even if you look at my hands, no two fingers on the same hand are of the same height. So we are all very different people. But even though people are unique in their own way, they collectively act in a certain way when it comes to a culture. Okay, so you moved from sort of the Swedish culture to like the American way of being. What were some of the things that you noticed that were significantly different from the Swedish people to like the American way of being?
Well, number one, I don't think New York and Manhattan doesn't represent the whole of the US. Everything was fast in Manhattan, and I moved fast as well. So I picked up on that, and I didn't realize until I went back to Sweden for the summer in between the 2 years we had there. And I knew how I should work from where I lived to the Grand Central Station. I knew how many streets I had to cross, and if I did it right with the right speed, I would be there on time. Came back to Sweden and moved in the same way, and I realized, oops, I'm moving too fast here. So that was number one. But one of the surprises I had in Australia, well, in America, was people very willing to give compliment, and they give it without, it could happen in the middle of the street and they would give you a compliment, and I learned how to say just thank you and not to justify it or explain why or how come. They are, then it's easy to make connections with the American, well, in my experience, make connection with them, but it's not that easy to come closer into who they really are. So very open up front, and they're very good at remembering people's names. And I found out the trick, that the way they do it, they will say, I introduce myself to you and I say, hi, Prosper, how are you? And then they use the name quite a few times in the first conversations that they have. So it goes into your mind that way, because we didn't have name tags as we, in today's world, most of the times when you go to a networking place, you get a name tag. So they're very openly and welcoming, but then to get into the deeper level of them wasn't as easy. Now, Manhattan is a very special place. There's so many different cultures that lives in Manhattan as well. I mean, I can walk from Upper East Side down through the center of Manhattan. I can go into Chinatown. There's a culture there. Or I could go into West End. There's a culture there. Or I can go into Little Italy and there's a different culture there. So
right.
yeah.
See, I've been to different places and different countries, and one of the things that happens is when you go to a different place, you automatically start walking and talking and being in the same pace as that place. It's just like, even if you're walking with someone, one of you will fall in line with the pace at which you're walking. Did you find that you had to maybe reinvent yourself or be somebody else that you were not back at home?
I don't think I reinvented myself, but I did pick up at my pace. So I would say that. I found, how can I say this, living in Sweden and coming to, the whole of Sweden can fit into Manhattan, basically. So it was a huge, in Sweden we had 8 million people, and it was 8 million people in Manhattan during the daytime. And then they sort of all went away and slept in all the suburbs, if you like. And then the other thing that hit me when I was there, anything was possible. If I want to go out and have breakfast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I could do that, because it's always a place they could see me. Whereas, in Sweden, if you have breakfast, it's breakfast, and then we change to lunch, and then it's dinner. Well, here, anything is possible, and everything is big in America. I mean, then this is in the early 1980s. You can go and do your exercise in the middle of the night. Whereas now that is, in the rest of the world, we can do that. Even if I go back to Sweden, I can do that because it's, 24 hours. It didn't exist in Sweden when I went to America. So it was, those are the surprises that I saw. And yes, but reinvent myself, maybe because my husband worked at the Swedish trade office. So we were there on a diplomat visa. So we did connect with the Swedish community quite a lot in our free time. In the daytime, I worked in the American market and American culture, if you like. He worked in the Swedish culture still. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yes, absolutely. So that's amazing. That's amazing. So obviously, once you were there, you moved into psychology, sociology, and you came across Oriental medicine. And like you mentioned, you started doing the Shiatsu, and I think you also engaged with Tai Chi Gong, and also improved on your communication skills. What is it that you discovered about, following these sort of ways, than that was present in traditional fitness alone? Like you mentioned, it wasn't enough.
Well, in traditional Chinese medicine, and I always believe prevention is better than cure. So if you go to a Chinese doctor, over there, traditionally, they will go to keep themselves well. I would go to my acupuncturist or to my herbalist to keep well. If I then fall ill, well, I would sack my doctor and go to one that can look after me better. Whereas here, it's the opposite. We go to the doctor when we're ill and we ask them to fix us. So it works very much on, what can I do to prevent myself to go into the imbalances and to create or feel unwell, create an illness within our system. So an illness is always an imbalance in your system somewhere. And the truth is, our body is an amazing vehicle. Your body always moves towards equilibrium or towards balance. If you're hot, you sweat. If you're thirsty, if you're dehydrated, then you get thirsty and you drink. So it always aims to go towards balance, if you like. So what, discovering Chinese medicine for me was looking at, okay, as I said, wellness is more than just the fitness part. So the mind, the body, and the spirits works together. And in the end of the day, it doesn't matter which therapy or way that you work with your body. All our therapies works towards one and the same. You all want to create some form of balance within. So if that is choosing Shiatsu, or if that's choosing, another body therapy or some mental health care, it all works towards balance. That's what we want to create, right? So for me, it opened up the whole new world of looking at, okay, what is health really about?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously.
And open up the way of looking at energy, which was very different to I looked at energy beforehand. Energy was something that I needed to do the things I wanted to do. And it is, but energy is so much more than that. In the end of the day, everything in our world comes back to energy. It's a source of energy.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of energy, you needed a lot of energy to up and go again, because in 1989 you moved and you were in the UK, where you became a core principal of the British School of Shiatsu, and you actually went on and helped build that franchise across the UK. Now, who did you have to become personally before leading something that is that big? Because this was now a whole completely different world and a whole different country and environment and things of that nature.
Yes, it was a big shift in my life. So I went from US, I went back to Sweden and opened up my own school and my own practice in Shiatsu. And then I realized that my mentor in New York was actually guest teaching at a school in London. So for me, going from Sweden to London was 2 hours on the flight, which was much closer than jumping all the way over to US to see him again. So that was the reason why I started to suss out what was going on in England. And to cut the long story short, so my now husband, since many years, Ray, was the principal of the school in London I connected with. And I decided to go to one of the courses over there with my mentor over in US, Ohashi. And in that conversation, Ray said, well, if you ever want a visiting teacher for your students in Sweden, I love traveling and I've never been to Sweden. So he invited himself to become a guest teacher at my school in Sweden. So that's how that connection started, more deeper connection. And he came up to Sweden and we did a workshop the first year. And then the second year he came back and we did a residential workshop over in Sweden. So that's when our closer relationship started. And that's when I basically decided to leave Sweden, leave my husband over in Sweden, leave my family, and move to England. So it was a big shift. Because it was a big shift, you can jump on the plane and it takes you 2 hours to get there. But I decided this is a big shift. So I'm going to take the ferry from Sweden to England and take the time to actually acknowledge my journey, the biggest shift that I did. So jumped on the train, jumped on the ferry, jumped in the train over in England. So there was probably a 36 hours journey rather than a 2 hours journey, which allowed me the time to just settle within my body, going back to my body and to see how do I really feel about this shifting over there.
Because you could have turned back. I mean, 36 hours is a very long time, you know what I mean? But you kept going, so it meant
that
was right. So obviously that's a reinvention in and of itself. I mean, across Sweden and London, and maybe we'll talk about the one in Australia. You see, when people move cities, countries, careers, even relationships, like you say, I mean, they often lose their sense of who they are. What helped you keep your inner compass while everything else around you was changing? Because wherever you were, there you were.
Yes, so it doesn't matter where I am in the world, and I live in 4 different places now. The culture, and it was when I went back for a visit in Sweden about a year and a half ago, and I did a trip on my own and spent 3 weeks over there. And I know that I have 2 homes. Sweden will always be my home. That's where my heart is, in the Swedish culture. And I take my Swedish culture with me wherever I am. I celebrate the Swedish traditions wherever I am in the world. And then where I live, that's my heart lives here in Australia at the moment. That's where I live. Okay, but my heart always is in Sweden. With the culture in Sweden, I will always relate to that first and foremost. Shifting to England, I spent 13 years over in England. 2 of those years were living in London. In our school, was in London. So we always went back to London, even when we lived out in Bath, which we choose to do for ourselves and for the family. It wasn't until, what I learned in England was, because the plan was to stay there for 1 year and then we were going to go over to Australia. It took us 13 years to get here. And many times the first year I thought, oh, there's no point of starting this or getting this going because we're going to leave in a year's time. And it was actually Ray, my husband, who said, if you don't start and we end up staying longer than we planned, then you're going to regret yourself that you didn't start. So whenever that opportunity comes up to start something, take it and then go, plan for the future. And then you take it 1 day at a time. And if things changes, you can always change, you can pick it up somewhere else or you can pick it up later or whatever. So never miss the opportunity that is shown to you is how I live. And there were many opportunities open up for me over in England. I came over there on a student visa, and then I started to work with the school as a teacher. And then I ended up working with Ray as the principal of the school. So it wasn't just starting up as the principal of the school. I took the time to do that. So to learn the student body and to learn the teachers. And then it was Ray and me was the leader of the pack, if you'd like. And we had 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff in the office, and then we had between 20 and 25 teachers that were contracted into the business for and teaching our different classes. So we had a student body of 250 to 300 students, and a 2.5 to 3 year program. It was all on part-time. So that was the setup of the school.
Absolutely.
So yes, I had to step into that being a Shiatsu practitioner in my own little school to then being an employer and being the leader of the pack. And it was very much as I said, they were my family, my greater family. So yeah, I lived and breathed Shiatsu for those 13 years over in England. We're also very involved in the Shiatsu Society over in England. Ray sat as a president for a couple of years of that society, and I was on the assessment panel for many years. And we wrote a few books, as you said already, we wrote a few books on Shiatsu when we were there, and developed lots of products. When you came to the school, you can get everything you needed to become a Shiatsu practitioner. It was an exciting time.
Absolutely. This is what stands out for me, Susanne. I mean, you spent your whole life teaching people to become more at home in their bodies, which is obviously what it is that you've been doing. While your own life has actually required you to create a home again and again and again in new countries and new chapters. Do you see that connection?
Well, what I realize is if you go into a new place, people don't come and knock on your door. And it's for you to go out to create the network that you want to have. So, even here when I live in Australia, I've been to B&I this morning, and are you part of B&I yourself, Business Network International? So, I say to them, this is my extended family. Now I live as far away from my family I can be, not because I hate them or dislike them. I love them. I love my family, but those are the choices I made in my life. So if I don't have my close family, my birth family around me, then I connect to communities, like-minded people. And as we all, I believe, as humans, we need belonging. We need to belong to something. We need that human connection, especially in today's world with all this internet stuff. We're sitting here. I can't. I'd love to give you a hug, but I can't do that. So the physical connection and the human connection that we have with people is a need that we have. We spend 9 months in our mother's womb, and we're touched all the time. And the first thing we do when the baby comes out is put them close to the mother's breast, right? For many reasons. So the human connection is important. And if you want to live a long and well life, the relationships and the connections you have in your life is crucial. They are crucial. So I build my own network sometimes, and I did here as well. And I connect to like-minded people, business people, like-minded, who have the same life values as I do.
Absolutely. So what I'm actually hearing here is wellness is not simply about health then. It's about the people, the environment, and how we actually move around that, because you've experienced all these major shifts that would have broken somebody, through marriage, building a business, adopting your son, writing books, creating all these global organizations, and it's just one of those things that if you haven't got all of these things moving together. Sometimes your wellness actually then takes a back seat, and that's how a lot of people crumble. And yeah, you've actually become a beacon of this. So if somebody comes around, wants to learn a little bit about what it is that you do, what is it that you're providing, and what can people expect from you?
A good way to find out how I work is actually to listen. Well, a simple way is to get my book, because all the work that I do now in the coaching I do is within the book. The book was written 2-3 years ago, and when I wrote it, it was also, I thought about, okay, this is my belief system. These are things that I know works well for them. Worked well for me and worked for the people that I worked with. But also, it's not, as I said in the beginning, it's not a trend book. It's not based on trends. So whatever is in the book, some of those things has been valuable for and used for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah, I just collated it into what I believe we need to live well into the future. So that's one of getting in touch with me. I do offer free consultations, if you want to call them that. Health audits with people, so people can always do that and connect with me on social media or through my website, and get onto a conversation with, as we're having a conversation here.
Absolutely. See, some people, whenever they hear wellness, they're thinking, "Oh, it's another version of drink more water, exercise more, take longer baths, or maybe just take better care of yourself and maybe train this way, buy this supplement, follow this program." Why do you believe that more information is not always the answer for these people, and what do people really need?
It's a bit of a jungle out there. And it's worse today than when I started. So many different ways we can go, and so many different treatments we can utilize. And I believe if there was one pill or one treatment that would work for everyone, we should have found it by now. But that's not the truth. So, what I found out is that the wisdom is within you already. So the key to find out what works best for you is actually to tune in, to listen to your body and your body's voice, if you like, your body's needs. Because as I said earlier, what I need is not the same as you need, Prosper, when it comes to living a long, well life. But to live a long and well life, it's almost like you're baking a cake. If you don't have enough with eggs, you can't just chuck more flours or more milk into that cake mix. It's not going to make it happen. So, all the different ingredients, in my opinion, needs to be there. So it's the connections that you have, the relationships, is the everyone has a purpose on this planet. So finding out what your purpose is on this planet and working out what are the values for me, what values do I live with, or do I want to live with, and to make sure that the actions and the activities that you choose in life are in alignment with those values and your purpose in life. And if they are, when they are, what happens is usually it goes in a flow. Your life is more in flow, and you are well, and you are excited and happy. Whereas if you go, a lot of people bang their head against the wall and go against the life values, and listens more to what other people think that they should do, it doesn't work out so well. So, we all have the answers. Some people call it intuition. If you listen to that inner voice, then it will work out.
Absolutely.
So I'm a coach in listening and communication, and the woman that I worked with, Dr. Karen McCall, she doctorated on the subject of listening. And she based her doctorate on a scientific research that showed that if you are truly being heard, endorphins are being released in your system. And endorphins are part of our happy hormones. So you're providing a healing space for that person that you are listening to. In today's world, people pick up this one too often when they sit in conversations with people. But if you're truly being heard, you provide a healing space for that person. Now, on the other hand, if you're not feel heard, then you start to build up toxins in your system. And those toxins can grow over time and create imbalances that can lead to illnesses, if you like.
Absolutely.
So you can look at that when you speak, have a conversation with somebody else, but then look at it when you have a conversation with self. So if I don't listen to my true desires and my wants and my needs, what am I doing to myself? So then you're building up toxins in your own system.
Absolutely.
So really tuning in and listening to what is it that I want in my life is important for your health and well-being. So many people come to us, to a therapist, because they come because they're physically hurting. And then we relate it back to it's actually not the physical body. It has to do with something else, right? An emotion or a happening or a trauma from the past, if you like. So true listening is very often the key. And that's as well, there's a saying in my book that goes, if you listen to your body's whispers, you don't have to hear it scream. And so many people do not do that. And they go to the part where the body is screaming. As it happened for me, as I said, I had such bad back problem, I couldn't move. My body was screaming loudly until I heard it. So then we might end up in the one of those crisis situations. So true listening, if you listen to your body, you listen to your inner desires, if you like, you're so much better off.
I like that. And thank you so much. And for those that are watching right now, I think Susanne does not just simply help women feel better from what you're saying. This is a holistic way of looking at things because, like you said, some people just feel like a bit of a pain and they concentrate on that. They're not listening to the environment. They're not listening to the people around them. And also, are they listening to the fact that are they actually being listened to in order for those hormones to come through? And I think she helps people to stop treating their bodies like a problem to fix, but to actually treat them like the wisest partner to have for life. Now, if somebody's watching this, Susanne, where on the internet can they go to get that audit that you spoke about, or maybe a copy of your book?
Best is probably go to my website, which is my name, SusanneRidolfi.com. SusanneRidolfi.com. It's my website. You can also find me on social media. I hang around Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn are good ways to get to me. Absolutely. Or they can send me an email. Happy to share my email.
Great stuff. I'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can actually find their way there. Now, Susanne, I think you will be like myself. I mean, obviously you did say people are different and we're all individuals, but if you come to Australia, there's a statement that a lot of Australian people always say, and it goes in the line of should be all right, mate. So somebody might have a pain here or a problem there or whatever it is, and they'll be like, nah, it'll be all right, and things of that nature. It's the equivalent of that check engine light that you keep talking about. And when it comes to cars, that check engine light is normally translated to this is going to cost you. Now, what is it going to cost people that ignore all these signs and ignore their body and then just say, nah, she'll be all right, mate?
Well, sometimes it will cost them their lives, right? And that's a very high price to pay. As I said, prevention, it's easier, it doesn't take as much time, and it's certainly cheaper. So I said, people said, I can't afford it. And I said, well, can you afford not to, is the question very often. What's your priorities? If people look at my bank account, where my money goes and where my investment goes, it goes to me, to me being well. And, most people have been on an aircraft at some point in their lives in today's world. And, they go through the security things and say, this is the exit doors and here's the mask that drops down, the oxygen mask that drops down from the ceiling. And where do they tell us to put it first?
You put your mask on first.
Yeah, on yourself. Because if you look after yourself, you're so much better equipped to look after others. This is a problem a lot of women have. They look after their family and their children and their furry friends and their business, and they end up on the bottom of the list, right? Until they end up in crisis. I realize if I don't do anything now, it's going to go downhill from here.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of putting your mask on first, so many people, they put themselves last. And I think it's maybe I don't know, I'm going to say this with love and respect. As women, they would have had kids or they have a family to look after. They want to make sure all of the kids and everyone is fine first, and they're putting themselves last. And they're disconnected from obviously the vibrant life that they should be, enduring. What is it that you can say to these people that say, when the kids are out of the home, that's when I'll start taking care of myself?
Well, that's I think that's the reality for many. If you in my world with me and my husband, and it's been like this, our kids are out of the house now, so it's the two of us, but it's always been we have created me time, so time for myself, and then we created we times, that's me and my husband at the moment, and family time. So those are in my world, those are the non-negotiable. So that's what I put in first in my diary. And then I put in the other stuff around it. Most people work their work diary out first, and then they put down, oh, I don't have time for that. So the me time disappears, right? But if it's going to, my business coach has said to me, if it's not in the diary, Susanne, it's not going to happen. And it's very true. And it's the same with time for self. If it's not in the diary, it's not going to happen. So make time in your diary. I work very much with, time management with the people that I coach. So we fork out time, and most people not most, a lot of people come to me and say, I don't have energy and I don't have time. Now, when it comes to time is the most equal that we have on this planet. Everyone has 24 hours a day, and there's so many seconds in a day, and you can't count it out, but everyone has the same amount of time. So it's not about the clock, really. It's how you prioritize your time, and where do I put my time. In my experience, if you invest time in self, then you gain time because you become more productive. If you're well, you're more productive. If you're happy, you're more productive. People say I'm busy. It's not about being busy, because busyness, we can't see any, you're busy, what are you busy doing? I can't see any results, if you like. So changing I'm busy to I'm being productive with the time that I have. So invest in self and you become more, as I said, that actually saves time to do the businesses you want to do, saves time to go out and do the things that you want to do, which is not business, that makes you alive and happy.
Absolutely. You know what I like about that, because if you look at a few women's diaries, they have space for kids' sports, they have space for kids' birthdays and everything else, but they haven't put time in their diary for themselves. And if they could only manage that part, I mean, things would actually be a whole lot easier for them. Now, Susanne, obviously you've taken us on a very nice journey and a very, clear path of how you went, but there was a stop in your world where you did mention that, you had the back problem and the back pain just simply because you were not listening to your body. And now that you know what you know with this sort of information and what you have now become, if you could go back in time, besides that teenage gymnast or that PE teacher who just kept going on and on and on and maybe never gave a break and gave time to listen to her body, what would you tell her about, how to progress and who to become, or who they're going to become?
Yeah, I think for me, it's simple. It doesn't make it easy all the time. Is to create that. If you're truly going to hear your needs and your body's needs and your own desires, we need to create a space of quietness, or of peace, if you like. And if you look at the letters, listen. It's the same letters as in silent, and it's in that silent space that we truly gets to hear what our inner desires and what our body is. So in New York, I would just say, please stop, take a moment. That would probably be the best stop. And we teach it to the kids in school. We said before it's about stop talking, start listening, self-regulate, right? And we tell the kids in school, because very often we just want to react. If I'm angry, I just want to hit or stomp or do whatever. Whereas if I take a moment, respond rather than react, take a moment to listen. And the way I coach now, I ask people, ask yourself 3 questions, and there's 3 questions about serving. So does it serve me? Is the action I want to take or what I want to do in this situation, is that going to serve me? That's question number 1. And question number 2, is it going to serve the situation or the people that are involved in this situation? And does it serve the greater good of all? If you get no to any of those questions, then maybe you should choose another action or make another decision, another choice. Make another choice.
Absolutely.
Does it serve?
Thank you very much. Now, Susanne, you've taken us from Sweden to America to London and now in the Gold Coast. and we've explored everything along the journey and who you've become and things of that nature. But now that we're in your world, what's next? What can we expect that you're working on that we can celebrate with you? Now that you've brought us into your world.
Yes, people ask me, are you staying here now then? I said, well, permanently for now. And that's coming up. I said, is it time to shift and move again? Gold Coast is becoming a very busy place. This is where I want to stay. So that's the space where I'm in at the moment. I reached the wonderful age of 71. So what do I want to get out of the next 10 and 20 years of my life? What's next? I did write the book, and what I'm working on at the moment is to put an online process in, so people who doesn't want to do this face-to-face like this on a Zoom call, or here on the Gold Coast, I meet people face-to-face basically. But there's also the opportunity to find me online and go through the process in your own way with support. So that's the next, leaving another legacy around this.
Absolutely. Now, Susanne, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience have so much value for those that are looking to be well, feel well, and do well. And from what you have said, you can't do well if you don't feel well.
True that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, for those that are watching now, if today's episode made you think a little bit about the way you've been operating and how you haven't been giving yourself grace, first of all, I wish Susanne could come around and just give you a hug. But like she said, the only way she can do that is help you through her website and her book. So I will be putting all those links in the show notes so that you too can actually start your journey, to actually do and have a happier existence. And if you are already on your path and you know other people that might be struggling with their health and not putting themselves first, why don't you just slide this video into their DM and share it with them. Don't mention anything. I think they will get the message once they watch this for themselves. And if somebody has shared this with you, the next time you see them, give them a hug and make sure you're subscribed to the Online Prosperity Show so that you too don't miss out on information like this. I can't wait to see what you're going to be doing with this information after this, because like Susanne has said, your body's not asking you to become perfect. It's just asking you to become present. Bye for now.